Eberron Rising from the Last War is a world where technology is pretty advanced, with the help of a little magic of course. It's a world where you have warforged soldiers and politics coming into play. This is a pulp fantasy world still reeling from a cataclysmic war. But this setting isn't your typical swords and sorcery fare. You have noir detectives, arcane hackers, and magical steampunk airships, all running parallel in the same chaotic world. The story is the aftermath of the Last War, a decades-long conflict that shattered the kingdom of Galifar into 5 separate nations. The war is technically ended, but tensions are still high. The borders are shaky and nobody really trusts anyone. One nation even got completely destroyed in an apocalyptic magical event called the Day of Mourning, which left behind a cursed wasteland called the Mournland. Nobody knows why it happened or even who's next. This book introduces dragon-marked houses, magical dynasties that act like corporations, controlling everything from healing to transportation. You've got the introduction of the Warforged, Shifter, Changeling, and Kalashtar races, and all kinds of other options you wouldn't find in your classic medieval tavern. And speaking of taverns, you might find your tavern floating through the air pulled by elementals. The world is full of ancient secrets like the Draconic Prophecy, the Lords of Dust, and ruins from long-dead magical empires. It's kind of a setting where a rogue might find work for a magical newspaper, and a wizard might have to navigate labor union negotiations with a fire elemental. If you like your fantasy with a shot of noir and a little dose of arcane diesel punk, Eberron is the setting for you. Also, 99% of you aren't subscribed. Do me a solid now, subscribe, we're doing more of these. If Curse of Strahd is gothic horror at its finest, Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft is the full horror buffet. This campaign setting book expands the world of Ravenloft into a multiverse of terror, known as the Domains of Dread. Each one a pocket dimension ruled by its own evil overlord, called a Dark Lord, who's usually just as cursed as they are terrifying. The book gives you dozens of horrifying worlds to explore or build a campaign around. Whether you want to run a grim zombie apocalypse, a twisted fairy tale realm, or a psychological thriller where reality bends around trauma and guilt. There's even a domain for cosmic horror, slasher horror, body horror, you name it. There's a domain that specializes in it. You've still got Barovia and Strahd in the mix, but they're just one flavor of terror now. This guide treats horror like a toolbox, helping DMs craft chilling narratives tailored to the vibe you want. The book introduces the Dhampir, Hexblood, and Reborn races. These ones are perfect for characters who want to have monstrous origins or cursed pasts. There's also some ghost story themed and necromantic subclass options. If you want to run your own horror domain, the book walks you through it step by step by creating your own Dark Lord. Their tragic backstory, the domain's twisted logic, and how it all traps your players in a living nightmare that reflects the villain's sins. This setting is not just about fighting monsters. It's about having them explore the consequences of the flaws of your big bad evil guy. It's replayable, flexible, and perfect for DMs who want to mix terror with tragedy. The Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide is your official tourist map to the most iconic region in the Forgotten Realms, the Sword Coast. The Sword Coast is home to some of the biggest names in D&D lore: Baldur's Gate, Neverwinter, Waterdeep, Icewind Dale, and plenty of shady backroads and deadly ruins in between. This book walks you through the different cultures, faiths, and organizations that shape the daily life in Faerun. It's not just for DMs either. Players get access to some class options, new backgrounds, and insights into how their character might fit into this world. It also ties into major 5e campaigns like Horde of the Dragon Queen, Out of the Abyss, and Storm King's Thunder, so you're never really far from your typical Dragon Cult or Demon Lord. This book is pretty foundational. This is the book you want if you want to run your custom campaign in the standard D&D world. Explorer's Guide to Wildemount is the critical role campaign setting for their campaign 2. It drops your party into a world that is teetering on the brink of war, with high fantasy, living gods, dead gods, and plenty of room for political scheming or world-ending chaos. Wildemount is split into 4 main regions: the war-torn Dwendalian Empire, the free-spirited coastal Menagerie Coast, the frozen wastes of Isilcross, and the isolated Xhorhas. The book is set during the early days of the War of Ashen Light, between the Empire and the Kryn dynasty. So your party isn't really just exploring, they're walking through the equivalent of a certain Serbian's destiny. This is primarily a setting book, this is not a single adventure, but it does include 4 starting adventures, each one designed to introduce a different corner of Wildemount. Mechanically, you got a lot to work with. You have 3 new subclasses tied to Dunamancy, the setting's unique time and gravity-based magic. 2 of these subclasses are tied to the wizard, and 1 tied to the fighter. You have Dunamancy spells, which are tied to time, gravity, and probability. And also you have new backgrounds like the Grinner and Volstrucker Agent. And of course, tons of different factions. Even if you're not a Critical Role fan, this book is packed with lore, maps, subclasses, and world building that can slot into any campaign. Spelljammer Adventures in Space is D&D, but just in space. But hold up, it's not the kind with lasers and warp drives. This is flying pirate ships shaped like squids and dragons, powered by magic, sailing through a cosmic sea full of air bubbles and psychic space whales. I've never played this before, but it sounds pretty wild. The big thing here is the Astral Sea, a silvery void between worlds where time stands still and gods float like forgotten relics. You're gonna be hopping between wild space systems in spelljamming ships, dodging astral pirates, mind flayers, beholders, and whatever else is lurking out there in the void. In terms of player options, Spelljammer introduces 6 new playable races detailed here. The Astral Adventurer's Guide also gives you rules for spelljamming ships, crew roles, and space travel, although the mechanics are pretty lightweight. This is more space fantasy swashbuckling than hard sci-fi. It's fast, loose, and it's got room for some cinema. The included adventure called Light of Xerxes is pretty cool as well. You should check out this other video with the modules if you want to know more details about it. Spelljammer is not for every table. It's chaotic and leads heavily on aesthetic over some mechanical crunches. But if your group wants a change of pace from castles, then this setting is for you. Strixhaven is D&D but in college. It takes your party out of the dungeons and straight into arcane academia. If your groups ever wanted to roleplay Hogwarts with student loans and magical exams, well, this is it. This is based on the Magic the Gathering setting, and it drops you into the most prestigious university in the multiverse, Strixhaven University, where everything just might be enchanted, even the cafeteria food. And this isn't just a source book. I got comments in the last video telling me I missed out on this. It's a full level 1 to 10 campaign, broken into 4 academic years. Each chapter plays like a school term, with magical classes and actual extracurriculars. In between school life, your party slowly uncovers a growing threat involving arcane secrets and a sinister conspiracy that's been bubbling under the surface of campus life. The 5 colleges are the heart of this setting, and each college grants you a new background that actually scales with your level. These backgrounds come with built-in spells and extracurricular perks, making you feel like you really belong to your college, and not just wearing the merch. Also included are new spells like Silvery Barbs, which is honestly powerful enough to have caused minor table wars. You have student NPCs, including rivals, friends, romantic interest. You can date, prank, or even duel them. The last cool thing about this is the Strixhaven mascot system, letting you summon magical college-themed companions. Mechanically, this book leans heavily into roleplay and social encounters. Combat does show up, don't get me wrong, especially as the mysterious threat escalates, but a lot of your time will be spending debating professors, sneaking into libraries, and passing finals. It's one of the most non-traditional 5e campaigns, and works best for groups who want to enjoy character development, sandbox-style storytelling, and a little bit of college nostalgia. The Book of Ebon Tides is a Kobold press release, and it touches on the Feywild and Shadowfell. It gives you an entire setting, the Shadow Realm. What makes this place so fun? Everything's kinda off. Time moves wrong. People disappear into dreams. Everything's just kinda not okay. Your new player options include 4 new lineages. You also got new subclasses like the Shadow Fae Bard, the Grave Magus, the Void Touch Sorcerers, and also some new spells and feats. The book also introduces these neat little infrastructures called Shadow Roads, and these are a magical network of hidden paths that let you traverse continents in minutes, if you're willing to pay a certain toll. This book is good for DMs who love dark fairy tales. You got these different cities that float on spider bridges, some fairy courts that play politics with ancient dreams, and who knows, hey, your players might end up owing a favor to a fae person. Dragonlance Shadow of the Dragon Queen is a high-stakes, war-torn, dragon-filled classic, and it drops your party straight into the middle of an all-out war between mortals and a rising dragon army, which is led by the villainous Dragon Queen herself. This adventure is set during the War of the Lance, a major historical conflict in the world of Krynn. So it isn't just a regular dungeon crawl, it's a military campaign. Your party starts in this like nice, peaceful town, but what they don't know is it's about to get absolutely steamrolled. Things escalate fast. One minute you're competing in a fishing festival, and the next you're fighting for your lives to run away as your town burns. From here, it's full-on war story. You'll serve as scouts, saboteurs, defenders of the cities, and finally champions battling a dark general. What makes it so unique? If you're running this setting alongside the Warriors of Krynn board game, you can actually simulate full-scale war battles. It's a cool mechanic that gives the campaign even more of an epic cinematic feel. Mechanically, this adds the Kender race. You got different backgrounds for mages and knights, like the Knights of Solamnia and Mages of High Sorcery, and the entire continent of Ansalon to play with. While this respects Dragonlance lore, it is also written so that you don't need to really know anything about Krynn. See, this setting is both written as an adventure and a campaign setting. I'm not quite sure why, but hey, 5e. More of an excuse for me to talk about Dragonlance, which is always a plus. Humblewood is a 5e compatible campaign setting by Hitpoint Press, and it swaps out your classical races for like Owl Knights, Robin Rogues, and even Hedgehog Druids. And all of you are fighting to save your home from chaos and flame. This world centers around Humblewood itself, a massive enchanted forest ruled by birdfolk, and protected by a great tree, a mystical source of life. Now that tree is dying, the land is in turmoil, and the enemies are spreading fire and fear across the realm. The main campaign takes players from levels 1 to 5, which is always expandable into a longer campaign if you want it. Here you got 10 new playable races, which are divided between birdfolk and humblings. You also got new subclasses, magic items, backgrounds, and spells, all themed around nature, the balance of the forest, and emotional magic. This setting leads hard into themes of the natural world, pushing back against those who seek to exploit it. What makes Humblewood shine is tone. The main driving factor is, look at the art, it's pretty cozy. This is a setting where you can be like a squirrel bard, and you can die to a flaming elemental elk. The art style is warm and whimsical, but the story has real weight as well. It's perfect for groups that want a wholesome campaign, and new players looking for an easy entry into 5e. Along with a memorable flavor, of course. Mythic Odysseys of Theros is D&D meets Greek mythology. It's based on the Magic the Gathering plane of Theros, and it tosses your party into a world of god-fueled heroes who become legends or die trying. In this book, the gods are actually real. They have their own opinions, and they are always watching you. And not just in the vague, augury kind of way. They're able to make their presence known. They play favorites, and they're even able to smite you if they don't like you. When you create a character in Theros, you're choosing a divine patron from the start, and that god's goals, grudges, and blessings will define your journey. The thing that makes this setting different is the piety system, which is a whole new mechanic that tracks how well you're serving your god. Be good, and you might earn some divine powers. Be bad, and you might get cursed, haunted, or smited. You also got mythic monsters. These boss battles are literally able to change phases during the fight. You got some new subclasses in this book, like for Bard and Paladin. You got some new magic items and spells themed around Divine Wrath, and you got some flavorful backgrounds tied to Theros' world building. The Lord of the Rings role-playing is D&D based on the One Ring RPG, and fully rebuilt for D&D 5th edition. This drops your party into Middle-earth, not as chosen ones with god-tier powers, but as grounded heroes trying to preserve the last fragile pieces of peace. The setting focuses on the years between The Hobbit and the Fellowship of the Ring. It's perfect for grounded, roleplay-heavy campaigns where every orc is a threat, and every journey feels like a battle of willpower. Magic in this world is subtle and rare. Healing is slow, and the combat is gritty. Travel in this setting can be really dangerous, exhausting, and pretty central to the story. I mean, a good part of the movies was the characters traveling from one end to the other. You'll manage fatigue and suffer misfortunes. The act of crossing a mountain can be an adventure all on its own. This setting also puts a spin on the madness mechanic and introduces shadow points. If you witness horrors, corruption, or even make tough moral choices, the shadow points build up, and your characters may fall into madness. This setting does have cultures instead of races. Sure, there are distinctions, but you can be a dwarf of a particular folk. You can be an elf of a particular people. It's got 6 cultures, including the Men of Bree, the Hobbits of the Shire, and 6 classes like the Captain, Champion, and Messenger. Also, no clerics and no wizards. Well, maybe a little bit of wizards. This is a low magic setting, where courage, loyalty, and hope are your greatest weapons. You're here to fight for the little corner of the world you can still save. If your party wants a world where even finding a herb matters, then the Lord of the Rings roleplaying might be the most atmospheric way to play 5e you'll ever find. Just don't expect all that much loot. You'll be lucky to come back from a goblin encounter alive. The Tal'Dorei campaign setting is Critical Role's Exandria, but on a different continent. If Explorer's Guide to Wildemount gave us a look at war-torn, politically complex continents, Tal'Dorei is a more high-adventure version of it. Set 20 years after the events of Campaign 1, this book takes you right into the heart of Tal'Dorei, a continent still reeling from world-changing events. It's got some expanded lore on Iman, Whitestone, and Vasselheim, and dozens of factions and power players. And of course, it can't be a Critical Role campaign without some Betrayer gods being in the mix somewhere here. It introduces a number of new subclasses and new backgrounds detailed here. You'll probably be getting wrapped up in a war between ancient forces, but you'll also have time for heartfelt moments. This is Critical Role after all. Planescape is all about planes, portals, and pure metaphysics, where reality is negotiable, if you argue hard enough. At the heart of it all is a city called Sigil. Thank you, commenter. also called the City of Doors. Sigil is home to factions that disagree so hard they might start literal wars over it. Expanding out from the city are the Outlands, a massive ring of reality that connects to every other outer plane. If you go far enough, you're finding angels. Go to the other way, and you're finding demons. You got some new backgrounds like the Gate Warden and Planar Philosopher, and some new feats that allow you to phase through walls, speak with deads, reshape magic, and more. Planescape is for players and DMs who want to break the rules of reality. You are literally outside the regular planes. Layers of Etharis is a brutal companion to Grim Hollow, taking all that gothic despair and cranking it up a bit. This book has 20 fully fleshed out layers, each with its own mini dungeon, terrifying boss, and story hook. Each layer has a flavorful setup and regional effects. There are not that many happy endings in this book, but if you're into gothic horror, Layers of Etharis is one of the best monster-themed supplements in 5e, especially outside the official Wizards content. Guildmasters Guide to Ravnica is D&D's crossover with Magic the Gathering, and it delivers a pretty unique setting. The entire setting is based on one giant city, where you are tied to a specific guild. And what's your guild? That's your identity, your job, and your enemies, sometimes all at once. Ravnica is a planet covered by one giant city. No wilderness, no borders, just an endless urban sprawl. In here, the guilds are everything. Every player chooses a guild to be a part of, and each one shapes your character's role in the world. Here's the 10 guilds. Each has their own goals, conflicts, and power struggles. You have some new races and backgrounds, one for each guild, giving you flavorful bonuses and deep RP connections. The campaign tone is one with urban noir and magical chaos. You're able to run a turf war, a magical Black Ops mission, and a dungeon crawl. But instead of a classic dungeon, it's like a random subway. This setting is perfect for players who love city intrigue. If your group wants to feel like a tiny cog in a giant dystopian society, this is your ticket. Have you ever wanted to run a D&D campaign where the party are corporate interns climbing the ladder of dungeon-delving capitalism? Welcome to Acquisitions Incorporated, where adventuring is a business, your party is an employee-owned startup, and your biggest enemies might be both mind flayers and HR. This book is based on the D&D comedy series from Penny Arcade and Wizards of the Coast, and it lets you run campaigns in their own universe or slap their mechanics onto your homebrew world. You could even make Shark Tank if you wanted to. The premise is your adventuring party is now a franchise, and they are a part of the Acquisitions Incorporated branch, a widespread corporation that sends teams of questionable competence out to claim treasure, solve problems, and file reports. This is fantasy adventure, but it does have some layers of office bureaucracy and rivalries. It's got some new backgrounds and even has franchise rules, where you'll create a company name and slogan, hire some NPCs who handle logistics, and gain company perks, which may come with a headquarters. Maybe, you don't know. Each of the players gets a franchise position. Here's some examples of them. These roles offer mechanical perks and hilarious RP hooks. It isn't for every group, but if your table does like the idea of being the worst run adventuring franchise in Faerun, this book is pretty good.
Greyhawk is the original homebrew campaign that started it all. Created by Gary Gygax himself, this setting is pure old-school D&D, a classic dungeon crawling experience, all wrapped up in one of the most iconic fantasy worlds ever published. Greyhawk is a high fantasy setting, with a lower magic feel compared to the places like the Forgotten Realms. Magic exists, yeah, but it's tightly held by powerful figures. And speaking of power, this world is politics heavy, full of political figures that shift their alliances across the continent of Earth. What makes Greyhawk so special is that it's gritty and grounded. This isn't a superhero setting. It's a world where adventurers matter because they're rare. The Flatness region is the heart of it all. Dozens of kingdoms, empires, and frontier states vying for control. And Greyhawk is also known for its living timeline, with major wars, political shifts, and even player-influenced events shaping the lore. It's often sandbox style, meaning DMs are encouraged to let the players pick a direction and just start digging. Sometimes literally. Some famous names from Greyhawk include Vecna, Mordenkainen, Tasha, Bigby, and Tensor. And this is the setting where you also have the Circle of Eight, an elite wizard cabal. These were mentioned in our previous video about the lore of Mordenkainen. You can go check it out here, or in the description below. This setting doesn't come with unique subclasses or races, it's more of a lore-driven world than a mechanics-heavy one. While Greyhawk hasn't had a full 5e hardcover release, I had to include it in this video. It's kinda getting revitalized in Vecna Eve of Ruin, and Wizards is slowly reintroducing it to the 5e player base. If you want a world that feels classic and steeped in real D&D history, Greyhawk is the go for you. It's less flashy than the Forgotten Realms, but it's got depth, and a real sense that you're adventuring where it all began.
That is all of the 5e settings. Thank you all for watching. I've only compiled this list from the official list of D&D Beyond, so sorry if I missed any in passing. And to whoever's still watching, have a good one. You got some new subclasses in this book for Paladin and Bard. 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 I can't say fucking R correctly.